Oh, ladies and gentlemen, it feels good to be back. It's been a pretty hectic couple of weeks in science. I'm sorry I haven't really, stuck to my schedule. I'm just gonna have to kick it to, me chucking up a podcast every hopefully a week or so. I'm just wall to wall at the moment with work and uni and whatnot. But I will be really doing my best to try and give you the latest in news, in science news, because even in my absence, there has been some really cool stuff happen. Now, funnily enough, it's been pretty quiet in the areas of AI, with OpenAI and Google DeepMind not releasing any sort of a new blog or new papers in the past couple of weeks. And with nanotech, it's been sort of run of the mill or stuff that is important to people purely in the science community. So that's not really what I'm about. But there has just been an explosion of cool shit happen over the Christmas break in biotechnology. And that is no issue at all, and it's almost not unexpected at all, really, with scientists and reporters and journalists calling 2017 the year of gene therapy. With the understanding behind CRISPR being in its third year now after discovery in 2015, and the likes of discoveries like non-viral gene therapy and whatnot, and also there was the story about the dude that took a syringe of CRISPR and stuck it into his ass. I love that so much. To clarify, nothing happened to that guy. The dose of CRISPR wasn't high enough to have any effect on him. Regardless, just because one idiot did something that is not a good idea for anybody to do, it was an awesome year for science. And the past 3 weeks was an awesome year for biotech. So, without further ado, this is episode number 2. Let's get right into it. Alright, well, where do I start? Where do I start this time around? Why don't I start over at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in California? Yeah. Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory over in California have developed what they call a brain on a chip. Now, this sounds pretty cool, and it is. It is very cool. What they've done is they took a chip, just like a electronic chip, and they enabled it so that it was able to hold up to 4 brain cells. Now, what this facilitates and what this means for research and possibly for you, and inevitably for you in the future, is that they're able to understand and record the interactions between neurons in different parts of the brain in like much more clearly. So, a little bit more on brains and computers. So a lot of what we do at the moment to understand how a brain functions is we get a computer, we get a chip, and we put it into the brain, into it's like an electrode, and then you've got that. So you've got the ones that are intrusive, or you've got the ones that you got EEG monitors. So they're the ones that sit around your head. They're the ones that you'll see and they'll put the cap on and they've got like hundreds of cords coming out of the back. They've got clean ones. They have different purposes. So like EEG ones monitor, well, they're able to give you very vague notes just outside of just on the outskirts. They don't tell you a whole bunch. It doesn't tell you a whole lot. It's very faded. To take from the What But Why post, and I'll link that one as well. He talks about Neuralink and all that, but the way that he describes it is that, so like an EEG is like so imagine a soccer match, right? A soccer match in a really big stadium, and soccer for everybody else who hasn't, watches it. I don't. It's football in most countries. Anyway, I'm recording from Australia. It's soccer. So, you've got this soccer stadium. So an EEG allows you to, and if you imagine the brain being the game or what's happening within that stadium, an EEG allows you to listen into the game by putting your ear up against the wall on the outside of the stadium. So you can kind of hear what's going on. You can hear the crowd roar from time to time, but you don't know the players, you don't know the score, you just don't know details at all. Then you have other forms. So other forms, when they put an electrode directly into your brain, you're able to very clearly listen to up to about 100 or 200 people in one block of the stadium. That's it. So from there on out, it's trade-offs. So you either get accuracy, so you're able to hear their exact conversations, or you get the overall vibe of the thing. But basically, they've all got to do, they all work on currently an in vitro or an ex vitro brain. What these guys have done over in California is that they took brain cells and they out of a brain and put them onto a chip. And they simulated a brain by taking different cells from different parts of the brain and orientating them on the chip in the same orientation you would find them in the brain. So this allowed them to very, very, very accurately understand how they might interact with each other with their electrical impulses and whatnot. Now, this is to call it a brain on a chip is a bit of a long shot, considering. So they got 4 cells. They got up to 4 cells on there, and they say that it is expandable to more cells. They didn't say exactly how many, but they got 4 cells onto this chip. And considering the brain has 100 billion neurons in it, we've got a little way to go. Nonetheless, it is an advancement, and some very peculiar things will come from it without a doubt. Now, this actually works as a perfect segue into something that you'll hear me talk about more and more, and you'll hear me relate to more and more, and that is brain interfaces, notably neural lace and notably Neuralink. Neuralink is a company developed in cooperation with people like Elon Musk. It's not owned by him, but he helps out a fair bit, financially speaking. But Neuralink is striving towards building a total brain interface. So it creates like a 4th layer onto your brain. Now this whole total brain interface is a subject. They're called brain-machine interfaces. Now, this is a subject that I could talk about for an hour and barely scratch the surface on. But pretty much one of the ways, the reason why Elon Musk is interested in it is because he thinks that it's the only way that we'll be able to, hold on to AI by making it part of itself. Don't get too scared by that. I'll elaborate on that another time. But pretty much, if you are able to control parts of your brain and eventually your entire brain, you could very well cure yourself of so many different problems. Anything from, you could relieve yourself from the craving to eat that thing that is obviously very bad for you, like a cupcake, to the other end of the addiction spectrum, to somebody being able to be cured of a heroin addiction, which is costing people, billions of dollars a year, destroys families. Phenomenal work that could be done in that region for sure. So that was just my little link, my first little bit onto really what a brain-machine interface is and what the potential of it for is. And you'll hear me talk about that a lot in 2018. That was the first story for 2018. Let's move on to the next one. Alright, so for story number 2, we don't go too far because we're still in actually, I'm not going to do that one again. It kind of hurt the first time. No, but we're still at the University of California and we're still talking about biotechnology. This one is very similar to 3D printing organs. So one of the really big ones, I'm going to kind of premise this with why this is so important. So a massive issue, a global issue, is lack of transplants, lack of organs, pretty much. Wait lists for hearts and livers and kidneys are months and months long, and a lot of people die on those lists. And it's a tragedy. It's a real tragedy. Now, we can't exactly harvest more humans to do that. That's just a little bit fucked up. But biotechnology saves the day. 3D printing saves the day, as it looks like. And up to the first time I heard about it was about 2 years ago. Laboratories were able to 3D print, in effect, molds of noses and ears and stuff like that, and kidneys as well. And then they were able to put stem cells into these molds in a solution. And now these molds were made of some very special sort of a chemical. I'm being very hazy. I'll try to find the article and try to link it as well. But essentially, they were able to grow skin. They were able to grow skin and grow these parts with incredible detail, and they were able to use them, and the body actually accepted these. Now, that technique didn't quite work for things that are extremely complex, like a heart or a kidney. They just didn't quite capture the intricacies of those mechanics for whatever reason. Also, they were very expensive and they took a very long time. In comes these guys over at the University of California. What they did was they used the processes which already exist in cells, DNA replication and self-replication, and they programmed it to fit this template rather than a mold, this template perfectly. So what they were able to do is build fairly simple objects like ripples and bowls and curves and diamonds and anyway, all of these different shapes, but with very good accuracy, much cheaper. And I'm not going to comment on whether it was faster because it didn't specify. Regardless, it worked very well. And the big bonus in this one is because it's a purely organic process, it's the cells that are developing themselves. They do capture that intrinsic complexity found in those organs themselves, which is pretty cool if you ask me. So, obvious applications, as I said so before, from this one is that you'll be able to build these organs and possibly have a cure for this transplantation issue that we see across the globe. This one's really in its infancy. So they didn't print a kidney. They didn't, they didn't use a 3D printer, but they didn't do anything that created an organ or anything like that just yet. But it's proof of concept without a doubt. So I'm really interested to see where this goes. So watch this space. Story number 3 coming right up. Article number 3 is served to you, still in America. Actually, America kind of dominates this podcast. Goddamn. But story number 3 is served to you from the other side of the America. So we went from West Side, California. Now we're moving over to the East Side. We're going to Cornell University. Cornell is a uni just outside of New York, the city. It's still in New York, the state. What these guys have done is a little more niche. And it definitely is a little closer to solving a real world issue which affects 1 million Americans alone. Um, that's almost 1% of Americans have this life-threatening, like a daily life-threatening issue, which is type 1 diabetes. So that's a lack of insulin. So these people need to get a shot of insulin every single day, or they'll die, or they just won't be able to regulate their sugar levels well enough. That's what insulin does. It regulates your sugar levels. Or they'll just die. They'll cark it in a day. That's insane. God, it affects 1 million of them. Anyway, these guys over at Cornell University. Now, these two young guns there, they're with their, post-doctoral degrees, they developed a way in which they're able to create a new treatment for type 1 diabetes. It is not a cure, it's just another treatment. So as I said, most of these people with type 1 diabetes, they'll have to have an insulin shot every day. So they'll have to inject this hormone into them every day in order just to sustain that normal level. Completely artificial. Now, the other way they've done it is by using cells called islet cells. They used islet cells, which are the cells found in the endocrine part of the pancreas. So what that means is that it's the part of the pancreas which secretes insulin. And they get them from there and they put them into the gut, into the part. So they take it from a normal person and then they put it into the gut, into the pancreas, wherever they need the insulin, into the part where they need it. So it's like a transplant sort of thing, and it produces insulin. The issue is with that is they often get rejected by the immune system of the receiver, of the patient, of the receiving person with the insulin problem. So it means they have to take a lot of immunorepressive drugs. So that means their guards are down. A sickness, just the common flu or a cold could really knock them out. You just don't want to play with your immune system if you don't have to. The way they got around this was by using like a type, they call it a type of gel around these cells. So it would either accept or would be ignored by the immune system, and then it could do its thing, secrete insulin. Issue with that was that most techniques didn't do it for every single one of the cells that went into the body. Still, another issue is that when those cells died, because they're completely foreign cells, they have a higher chance of creating a tumor. Not so good. So, what these guys did, what these post-doctoral young guns did, was they got like something which is similar to a spider's web. That's where they saw their inspiration. So it's like a string sort of thing. And they saw how water beaded on this spider's web, and they applied the same thing to this fabric, to this string. Now, this stuff is just phenomenal. If you guys love big words and big names, you're going to love this one. So the actual stuff, the actual string, what it's made of is an ionized calcium-releasing nanoporous polymer thread. Oh, God, you gotta love BioTech and their big words. Yeah. But that doesn't detract from the fact that it was able to completely cover every single one of the cells that they injected into the patient. On top of that, this treatment was able to, if the cells did die, they're able to pull them out, no worries at all. Now, the actual intricacies and the mechanics are beyond me, I'm not gonna lie. So if you guys want to know more about it, it's in the link, it's in the description. Nonetheless, I thought it was worth talking about because it affects 1 million people on a daily basis. I think it just shows some of the potential that for biotechnology to do, even with these young guns, this new generation coming through. Yeah. Now, story number 4 is definitely my favorite story for today. Let's have a chat. as I said, this is my favorite article of the day because it has the words massacre viruses in it. It sounds pretty awesome, and it is even more awesome than that. This is so sick. So these researcher is looking at flies, Drosophila. I hate Drosophila. So do you, fruit flies. But I hate Drosophila even more because I had to study them for like 6 months. They suck. They're boring. They don't do anything. They're just annoying. Regardless, they came up with this. She was looking at Drosophila about 20 years ago and she discovered a protein. It was like an L-shaped protein. And it wasn't up until now that she was able to use 2017's Nobel Prize winning technology, cryo-electron microscopy, no idea how that works, to visualize it, to see what it does and how it works. Because it had this very peculiar little aspect to it, which was it had a helicase domain, which means something in science. I don't know what. Regardless, it was interesting to her. And she teamed up with another dude, a Dr. Shen. And they put this protein next to some viruses. And what it did was just annihilated their DNA. In their words, they now call this protein dicer protein because it takes the protein, takes the DNA strands in these viruses and just chops the shit up out of them. How cool is that? What a way to kill something. Take its insides, hack it up, give it back to it. Legend. Especially when it's a virus, which is very difficult to treat because it's so tiny. Like, it's tiny. And really annoying because, as you know, a virus is a virus. It sucks when you get a virus. And there's not really any treatment for it. Little disclaimer note here, kids. Don't take antibacterial when you've got a virus. They're not the same thing. Just don't do it. Regardless. Dicer protein did this to a virus, which is pretty sick. Now, I am getting a little bit ahead of myself because they grounded themselves by saying how this was only observed in flies. It only appeared to affect DNA, affect viruses that affected flies. But, I mean, they didn't find CRISPR in a human, and CRISPR works on humans just fine. So maybe they just found something that could work really well in humans that is actually a legend as well. So, 2018, thus far, you're going to have to find a protein that I like better. Because thus far, dicer is my favorite protein. Yeah. So, that pretty well wraps it up for episode 2 of the podcast. 2018 is going to be a phenomenal year. I know it. I just feel, I don't know about you guys, but for me, my 2018 has started out really well. I hope your 2018 has started out really well. The rest of the year is going to be just great, provided you listening to the podcast, like, comment, subscribe. But it's going to be a good year for science at the very least. And I'll be here to update you on it every week-ish or so on what's going on. My name's Red. You just listened to Vanguard Podcast, episode 2. And I'll catch you guys at the next one.